Great things change things. As global problems and human challenges continue to rise, we need to aim higher and go further. That's why we're helping young talents around the world to dream big and shape a better future for all of us. Because empowering a new generation to innovate with purpose is a great thing.
Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to this NTT LinkedIn Live session. This is the first of the sessions of 2021. I'm Ruth Rowan, I'm delighted to be here with you. We are live, so if you're joining us live, please don't hesitate to say hi on the chat and also to send through any questions that you may have. Of course, because we're live and you'll see that we are all distributed, we're certainly not sat together because of the pandemic. There could be the chaos that sometimes happens with connectivity, and goodness knows what's happening in the various places that we're sat. So please bear with us if that does happen. But I'm really delighted for this first LinkedIn Live session of 2021 to be joined by Tim Wade from NTT, who's been leading our involvement with Red Bull Basement. We're going to be talking about Red Bull Basement shortly, and also by the NTT wildcard winners and finalists of the Red Bull Basement 2020 competition, ROBOCEAN, and by Niall and Izzy from ROBOCEAN. So great to have you both with us as well. I'm sure this is going to be a really fascinating 30 minutes or so. So before we dive into ROBOCEAN and the amazing things that they are doing to help improve the health of our oceans around the world, I'll just maybe come to you, Tim. So NTT became an official partner for Red Bull Basement in 2020. We've just started our relationship with Red Bull. We're delighted to be the official technology partner for the Red Bull Basement program. And Tim, I know that you firstly identified this opportunity and actually suggested that we get involved with Red Bull. I don't know if you just want to tell us a little bit about Red Bull Basement, okay, and certainly what sparked your interest in the work that they do.
Yeah, thanks, Ruth, and hello everybody. So, I mean, just to start with, we've had a commercial relationship with Red Bull for a few years, and one of the innovation team over in Austria actually reached out to us with a proposal around the basement program and said, you know, there's obviously quite a lot of overlap around the innovative ethoses of the companies. Would we be interested in getting involved? And so we were quite keen and interested in it. The program itself is really, it's a competition, and it's tasking university students in 36 different countries this year about, you know, creating solutions to the world's biggest problems. So, you know, really that blank canvas, how can we use technology to help people and technology for good? As far as I recall, the numbers for this year, there was nearly 4,000 teams that actually applied, which is, I mean, amazing in itself. So think of all those ideas that were coming in, and then the process goes that there's kind of 4 stages that happen. There's a sort of an application phase where the different teams apply to be part of the program. Then there's voting and selection. There's a development phase, and then there's a final workshop, and that kind of spans between the beginning of September and the end of December. So we were brought this, but then, you know, we started this discussion, you know, around the first quarter of 2020, and you know, the world, obviously, we were just in the beginning throes of a pandemic. So the way that the program usually works is there's a series during that application phase. There's a series of workshops in the different countries, so that all the potential participants can be brought together to discuss the program, to get an understanding of what's happening, to then, you know, understand if they want to apply and formulate their teams. So I think one of the challenges that Red Bull had in those early phases was, well, we're not going to actually be able to put all these people in the same room. It wouldn't really be very responsible. You know, we want to obviously try and do this remotely. How do we make this as inclusive as possible, whilst still, you know, having these workshops, these launchpad events in each of the different countries? So it was quite interesting for us as the technology partner. We were then able to say, actually, do you know what? This is how we think we can help you using technology and support you using technology. And if I kind of dig into that a little bit, you know, what that actually meant was, you know, the way that Red Bull's structured is that they have a sort of a global team, but then they have their different country teams as well. And it's a very similar way that we work within NTT. So what we ended up doing was we ended up working with the global team at Red Bull to define a digital events solution. So we have a part of our organization called Cloud Communications, and we used one of the platforms in there called NTT Studio. And what this enabled us to do, and enabled us to enable Red Bull to do, was it enabled them to have live interactive events, but obviously from a central location, but then all the people could join remotely, so a digital event. And we set up, we leveraged the internal platform for that, but also then laid on the services, the sort of production services, so that you know, end user experience was really good. So I think that was one of the big pain points, but wasn't really you know the whole story for how the relationship was with us. So there was that technology support, but what we also did as a company was we offered up a series of mentors. So I myself was a mentor, and actually mentored ROBOCEAN, who will be speaking in a little while. And that was a fascinating process in itself. I mean, to be quite honest, I learned a lot, and I've learned a lot about Seagrass. but I'm sure Izzy and Niall will be talking about that shortly. So we enabled, you know, that mentorship from a series of key people within the organisation. But we also had a sort of, I'm going to say, an advisory consulting role as well. You know, again, with the pandemic, Red Bull had to leverage their existing technology suppliers to figure out some of the logistical ways that they could deliver some of the services when people aren't going to be together. So there was an involvement there from NTT to, you know, to help them craft and sometimes ask the difficult questions to help them get to where they needed to be. So it was a really multifaceted way that we supported them. A very, very interesting project, Ruth. It's been really good to be part of it.
Yeah, and thanks, Emma. Thanks. You know, I know that you first spotted the opportunity for Red Bull Basement, the program that they ran around, you know, encouraging bright minds to think differently about how we might solve some of the world's biggest problems and to bring those ideas forward. You know, the opportunity, we love innovation and we love how technology can solve problems as NTT, and certainly don't believe that we've got the answer to all of those problems, but love the opportunity to help accelerate other solutions. So firstly, thanks, Tim, you know, on behalf of all of us at NTT for bringing us this opportunity. And you're right, that opportunity for many of us to mentor some of these student groups, it is, you know, it's not just the teams that had real value from that. I think we all learned so much about you know, about ideas out there. So I think I'd love to now turn to Niall and Izzy from ROBOCEAN, and thank you, Tim, for being the mentor. You were very much our wildcard team. So when we had the opportunity as NTT as a partner to see many of the ideas and projects that were presented through the regional finals, one of the things we did as NTT was actually then open up many of those projects to our employee base, the 50,000 people within NTT Limited, to say which of these ideas would you vote for to be the NTT wildcard team, which was then a fast track into finals weekend. And I have to say, you know, of all of the things that we engage our employees on around the world, this is the most engaged we've ever seen people. We had over 10,000 employees respond and vote for the wildcard. So thank you for breaking and continuing to break our internal records. So I don't know, Niall, Izzy, before we dive into your experience with Red Bull, do you want to tell us a little bit about ROBOCEAN and the fundamental idea of what you're doing?
Yeah, of course. So the idea behind ROBOCEAN is just a year and a half old, give or take. And this sort of came around in November 2019. And it came after I found a news story related to a huge seagrass restoration project off the coast of Wales in Pembrokeshire. And the idea behind this was that seagrass meadows have been struggling for the last century. We're losing the 2 football pitches every year of seagrass coverage. In the UK, that's amounted to 92% of seagrass lost, and globally around a third. And what this restoration project sought to do, conducted by Project Seagrass, was just to be a sort of test site, and they were going to restore 2 hectares of seagrass by putting seagrass seeds in little biodegradable Hessian bags and distributing them across the seafloor. And the more I looked into it, I was fascinated, one, by the biological aspects and benefits of seagrass restoration, but also the way they were doing it. It was a huge organizational effort and a lot of resources. And after seeing that as an engineer or as an engineering student, I looked at that and thought, well, that seems a wee bit inefficient. I wonder, could we do that in a better way? And sort of, Izzy and I were flatting this at the time, and I said to her, well, what if we had a robot? And I mean, Izzy, am I right in saying that the initial response was, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, what if we had a robot, an ROV, remotely operated underwater vehicle that sort of took the divers out of the ocean, and you had a robot that didn't get tired and did the exact same job, perhaps more successfully and more efficiently. And with the idea, nothing really happened for a few months until a certain pandemic struck, and we spent a few months in our houses, and we were revising for exams. We just finished our exams, and we found ourselves with nothing to do in the beginning of a very lovely summer that was undoubtedly quite empty. And I sort of started asking friends from the University of Edinburgh, from our engineering course, whether they'd be interested in such a project, because they'd all heard me talk about it and ramble on about it in pubs and things like that, and probably sick of me talking about it without actually doing anything about it. And since then, we started having Microsoft Teams calls and having videos calls and sort of conceptualizing and thinking about how this robot might work and sort of designing things and having a good think. And initially it was just 6 of us, but then we grew to add 3 electrical engineers to complement mechanical engineers. And we've basically been doing that ever since, because the whole lockdown, certainly in the UK, hasn't really been used to how things work. And we're sitting here, 9 of us, and we haven't fully met yet, which is quite strange for the position we're sort of pre-startup. And we've had quite a lot of success, especially within Red Bull Basement. And we're sitting here uniquely in this position where we don't know when we're going to be able to meet. We're also on the verge of creating our first prototype, and it's an exciting time with a lot of twists and turns.
And I think now, if I'm right, so you're both, and I think obviously there's just the 2 of you with us today, but there's a wider group from Edinburgh University that are working on this. You're both 4th year postgrad students, is that correct? Yeah, and I think we can see you're both at home, in your respective flats in Edinburgh. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, as you said, you had this idea at the beginning of the pandemic around the potential for a robot to help plant seagrass, to reverse this trend that we're seeing. But what it's been like trying to bring this to life across this project team when you've all been remote, and albeit that you're all in Edinburgh, but you're not in the same location in Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we run everything off Microsoft Teams and everything, because we get it with the uni. So we're loving the fact that we're just renting our uni software licenses forever and ever. But yeah, we've just kind of thrown ourselves kind of headfirst into remote learning. But yeah, it's really bizarre because we can't meet up. So it's a lot of just kind of instant messaging and chasing people up and stuff like that, when you feel like just certain things would be so much easier if you bumped into people in uni, because we would naturally see each other every day. And trying to plan stuff, half of us are now on student placements, so we're all working full time. And then the rest are in uni as well. So we're all trying to do this weekday nights or on the weekend when we're a bit quiet. And it's just it's such an inefficiently run thing to do remotely on top of that. It's kind of ridiculous.
So a question coming through from the people watching, what is the impact on the world if we don't have enough seagrass in the oceans?
I mean, we're actually slowly starting to see this impact already. So there's a few stats and statistics going around that really support the impact of seagrass. So studies have shown that it can be up to 35 times faster at capturing CO2 than tropical rainforest per square meter or hectare, or whatever you want to say. And it's really efficient at doing that. So in a time where climate change threatens all of us, and we look for sustainable solutions for reducing our carbon footprint, seagrass is actually a brilliant option. And one of the best things about it is that it doesn't occupy a single inch of land. So a lot of people are saying, well, natural solutions, we can plant more trees. But trees, we need land, and with the ever-growing population and further industrialization of our green land, then we're sort of running short on places for trees. And what we can do instead is sort of move that carbon offsetting into the ocean, and that's actually accompanied by a number of benefits. So incredible marine biodiversity. I think up to 20% of the world's fisheries have or get their fish that spend their time in seagrass nurseries, and I think out of all the fish caught, it actually supports 50% of those if you work the maths out, and that these fisheries produce more fish, etc., etc. So on top of the incredible marine biodiversity, they do a number of other services. So they actually clean the local water, and recently they've been shown to filter out plastic waste from our seas, and that's not on a super huge scale. You know, I'm not saying that seagrass meadows are going to remove all plastic from our ocean with our robot, but it is certainly an added benefit. And one of the things about seagrass is that when you try to attribute value to its coverage, it can be quite difficult because it simply does so many things, and it doesn't really get the attention it deserves for the role it actually performs in our environments. And these things are global. This isn't just an issue in the UK. This is in 6 of our 7 continents. It's everywhere. And we have many different species. Some of them are threatened. Some of them are on the endangered list. And I really think that we need to act now if we're going to make the future full of seagrass, because otherwise our seas will be empty and we need to start looking after them.
Yeah. So seagrass sounds like it's the secret hero of the ocean, and not just the lungs of the ocean, but the lungs of the world. Actually, if it's taking so much more, or the regeneration of CO2 from the environment, not just in the ocean, but also in the air. So thank you for helping educate us so much about seagrass. I think we've all been so curious about something we didn't know about. I don't know, Izzy, do you want to talk a little bit about how the robot actually works? Question coming through.
Yeah, of course. So I guess so anyone that's seen WALL-E, the film, that's so it's got little tank tracks on the bottom, and we're putting it in quite shallow water, so maybe 5 meters deep. And so it kind of runs along in like a sort of like grid pattern, and there's a pump on the back of it, and then it dispenses the seagrass seeds suspended in this gel matrix that protects the seeds, because otherwise you're just pumping them out into the water and who knows where they're going. So we want to protect them so that they have space to germinate, and then obviously nice and protected. So it's the way that when the hand divers pump them, they plant them in the Hessian bags, help increase the growth and stuff like that. So we plant them at the back with the pump in the gel matrix in a little grid pattern, and then there's potential for like winching it to get it out of the water. We get asked about this a lot, so we don't just leave it in the water forever. But yeah, so it's just a simple pump matrix. Just kind of track about in the water. It's not super complicated. Everything exists. We're just trying to combine it in a new and exciting way to do some good.
Great. And another question coming through is, what does success look like for ROBOCEAN this year? If you fast forward to the end of 2021, if everything's worked out perfectly, what will have happened?
If everything works out perfectly, we will be sitting, all 9 of us, in a pub in a year's time celebrating the successful launch and test of our first prototype. So I think it's doable. It's totally not out of reach for us. It's going to be a lot of work. but it's a challenge we're up to. And I think when we finally all can meet up and put our hands together and start working on this, it's going to be a phenomenal effort. And for me, and I'm sure for the rest of the team, that is our goal, and that is how we will measure our own success.
Yeah, and I think for the world, that the fact that pubs would be open and there'd be 9, not 6 of you sat together, kind of indicates a success more broadly than just robotics and Seagrass. So you know, I think that's great, isn't it? Getting to a prototype, having that prototype working, you know, starting to plant Seagrass. You know, I think we are all behind and supporting you. Tim, maybe I can come back to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about how NTT's been involved with this? Obviously, promoting ROBOCEAN as our wildcard team into the final weekend for Red Bull Basement, which that final weekend happened just before Christmas at the end of 2020. But how we're now continuing to support the project.
Okay. So yeah, as a part of the team being, you know, the NTT wildcard, we actually brought out I'm going to say a whole team of mentors from within the organization to help on different aspects, you know, those including business, presentation skills, branding, so, you know, helping Izzy and Niall get to what their brand should look like, but also technology as well. So we supported right up until the end, you know, helping them craft their idea, and you know, them using us as a sounding board. You know, I think as we move forward with them, the sort of the goals of the ROBOCEAN team really align quite nicely with NTT and our sustainability goals, and also, you know, our sort of ethos to use technology for good. So we're currently exploring how we can support them moving forward, and that's through a number of different ways, both financially, through support of technology and development, by reaching out into the other areas within the NTT group to see what technology can be used to support them. One of those, for example, is, you know, we have a satellite mapping company or satellite imagery company within the NTT group. You know, are we able to take those satellite images, then create some, you know, AI algorithms and models to then understand the impact that's being made by planting new seagrass? So really trying to use the ideas that they've got, help them with the ideas they've got, and use the innovative, you know, solutions and ideas that we have within the organization to help them along.
Great, thank you. And I think it sounds like continuing the mentorship, Tim, that I know that you started through Red Bull, just to make sure that we continue to help. Just, we're coming to the end of our time together. I don't know, Niall, Izzy, if I can ask you one more question, which is, for any students that are watching that are thinking maybe about getting involved with Red Bull Basement this year, is there any advice that you'd like to give them?
I can take that. Don't worry, Izzy. Honestly, just go for it. You've got nothing to lose. I feel when people have ideas, they often overthink it. That's not to say that's always a problem, but what happens is people overthink it and sort of lose confidence in themselves and also their idea or their company or their startup and things like that. With ROBOCEAN, we were only a few months into developing our idea. We hadn't had a full picture. We didn't even have a 3D model, from what I remember, until we started to apply. And we came across Red Bull Basement through an Instagram ad, and we thought, well, why not? Let's just chance our arm. We might get lucky, and we certainly did. So I think, you know, we didn't think we'd be in this position 5 months ago, 8 months ago. We certainly had no idea. We had the ambition, but we didn't think, you know, this was definitely an easy thing that's going to happen. But for any other students out there who are thinking of applying, Red Bull Basement is a phenomenal opportunity to get amazing mentorship, lots of advice through your business, your company structure, your commercial capabilities. Pretty much anything we asked for, we had support for, and it was an amazing structure and framework for us to develop off. And if you're lucky enough to make a good application and get through, you will not regret it, I guarantee it. But the first step for that is putting forward an application, making your video, and just having a go. And I think even in the process of writing your first pitch and scripting your video, you'll find a lot of things come out. And if you're doing it right and if you're doing it well, I think even if you're unsuccessful with your application, you will still gain a lot from that process if you haven't done it before.
Great. Thank you, Niall.
No, I'd agree with that. But I would maybe just check your exam dates with when the finals are, because all of our fourth year engineering exams were when the finals were. And it's a good thing it's sponsored by Red Bull. No, definitely go for it. It's worth it.
Free Red Bull to keep you awake so you can multitask. Yeah.
Very much so.
And Tim, just from NTT's perspective, what do you think we'll see this year with the Red Bull Basement Programme?
Well, I mean, we're just starting this year's discussions with them with the Red Bull Basement team now. So there's a series of kind like discovery workshops to understand where they've got some pain points that we're able to help with technology to kind of fill those gaps. But what I actually think we're going to see this year is probably a couple of different things. I think I don't think the world's going to be in an ideal place from us all being able to mix in the same room. So what I predict we'll be exploring is mixed physical digital eventing. So having some people in some places and other people remotely. So again, you're helping to have a wider inclusion of different people from all over the place. But also, I think there's probably going to be some work for us to do around collaboration when people can't necessarily be in the same room. It's interesting to hear Izzy and Niall talk about they've never met. The team hasn't really all been together. I think that's going to be the same again this year. So how do we use technology to help that collaborative approach, the collaborative, working together, so that it's easier for people to form those ideas and come up with submissions for the competition? Great.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And we're at the end of our 30 minutes together. It seems to have flown by. I'd just like to say a very big thank you, firstly, to Niall and Izzy from ROBOCEAN. I think that all of us that have had the privilege of touching your projects wish you the best of luck, and we will help in any way we can. Thank you for introducing us to the wonders of seagrass and the potential that this incredible grass has to actually reverse a lot of the negative impact we're having on the climate at the moment, and the need for us to preserve it and replant it. And for Tim for introducing us a bit more into the Red Bull Basement Programme. Thank you everyone for joining us. We would probably love to invite all of you to that pub in Edinburgh where we celebrate at the end of the year the progress of ROBOCEAN. But stay safe and look forward to seeing you on LinkedIn Live soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.
Great things change things. As global problems and human challenges continue to rise, we need to aim higher and go further. That's why we're helping young talents around the world to dream big and shape a better future for all of us. Because empowering a new generation to innovate with purpose is a great thing.